very warm welcome from my side, ladies and gentlemen. Well, when I started in the business in 2001, 17 years ago, depreciation, the only cost that matters, is the topic. This was not really a topic at the time. And I started in aviation on the financing side. And in 2001, or short after, I wrote also my diploma about business jet transactions and the residual value when you do aircraft financing. And we investigated the market back until the beginning of the 80s, the 90s. And the outcome was that when you buy an aircraft, of course a new one, after 10 years, the value will be 70, 75, maybe 80%. But in fact, and most of the financiers did it at the time, if you set your residual value at 50% after 10 years, you're going to be more than safe. Of course, the majority of us knows what happened in 2008, and it's not a must, of course, that we're going to go back to these rates, but I want to take the opportunity also to show you how it was and how it could be also in the future, and to explain to new market participants, to new members of our business. I'm talking to in my daily business, and I experienced that somehow lawyers, tax advisors, appraisers even, but also some brokers have the general mindset that if you buy now a new aircraft, you're going to lose 50% in value in the first 5 years. And also first-time buyers have very often this opinion. And therefore, let us have a look how it was in the past. And in the past, I mean, until 2008, and what happened after. So I want to give you a short comparison between on aircraft depreciation between 1997 and 2006, and then of course very interesting from 2008 to 2017. I do not have to mention that when we did our studies in the beginning of 2000, we also faced in the 80s, or in the 90s, we faced the Gulf War, we faced the oil crisis, but in fact, the impact on residual values was never that strong as after 2008. Here on this slide, you see in the blue line a Challenger 604, manufactured 1997, and you see the depreciation curve in the first 10 years. So it was normal at the time that the production rates were very low, or very small, sorry, that every year manufacturers increased the price. Of course, we had higher inflations, but in the first years, the aircraft didn't lose in value. Here, specifically in the 604, you see that in the year 8, you have the 96 months inspection, so certainly the aircraft lost in value, but even in those times, the ones if you remember in the 80s, 90s, when an aircraft had a heavy inspection, after this, the value increased, which we don't see today. So here, a 10 years old 604, valued 88% of the original purchase price in 2006. If you take the same in the 80s on a 601, you will see the same. So it does not mean, of course, we had a hype in 2006, 2007, but this was the general curve of depreciation in value. If you see this today, 2017, you have to sell, you had to sell your 10 years Challenger 605 or 4. You got 27% of the original sales price. Better you see it here on the XLS. Cessnas have been all the time very strong in keeping value, as we know. So it was like normal that in the 90s and in the 80s, a Cessna kept its value, and like here in this example in XLS in 2006, it was 9 years old. The value, the residual market value, was 103% of the actual or original purchase price. Where if you had to sell last year a 10 years old, a 2008 XLS, you got 39%. Kept well in value, but of course we see a very, very strong difference. The same we see on the Falcons. A Falcon 50 after 10 years was 97% in value, where last year you got 39% for 10 years old 2000X Easy. The same applies for the G4 or G450. G450 last year, 10 years old, you got 29%, where in the 90s or 80s on the G4, 10 years old, you still received 80% or 85% here in this case. So, what is the normal? Is the old one, and we see this time frame for 20, or we've seen this time frame for more than 20 years, and after the crisis in 2008, I describe it here as the new normal. What is the normal and how it will be in the future? And the question is also, does higher depreciation mean that it's rather a buyer's market than a seller's market? Not necessarily, I must say, because let's think about last year. We've seen assets where we had an inventory beginning of the year like 13, 14, 50%. And although the inventory on used aircraft went down, on some assets down to or below 10%, like to 8%, still every quarter we saw the depreciation in value. And whenever we got new blue books, new VREFs, we saw values are going down, although the inventory went down as well, and buyers came more and more into the market. And same if you have a look here on the total deliveries. Of course, the total deliveries were too high in 2007, 2008. Here in Europe, we know very well that we had aircraft buyers at the time, especially in Eastern Europe, ordering 2 or even the third aircraft, which now, as we see it, they could not even afford one. But now, if you see the number of deliveries in 15, 16, we are still back, or we are already back to the numbers in delivery in the mid-2000s, and still prices are going down. The total billings, as we heard yesterday from Chad Anderson, although we saw a sharp decrease in aircraft deliveries, the total value increased because buyers are moving to larger aircraft. And it's very interesting, already in 2014 we have been at the value we sold in total in 2008, and it's still ongoing, and the depreciation is still the same, or was still the same as short after the crisis. So the question is, will we ever come back to the old normal? Currently, we see that values of aircraft trend to stabilize. We see, for example, if you take G550s, forward galley, 2010 and up, you see that it's hard to get a good one at retail value. So it's a positive trend to be seen that the aircraft values increase or sell faster and sell at retail value. But the general answer, if we will go back and see the old rates of depreciation, to me it's no, and I will give you the reasons why. Because first of all, we see a trickle-down effect, meaning that the OEMs, they give really high concessions on the large aircraft models, and this is then also affecting the smaller models. As we heard also in the discussion this morning, 2020 compliance is very important, meaning it will be very difficult, and it is very difficult, to sell aircraft before 2009 and without 2020 compliance. So therefore the depreciation will increase. And also we see a very low retirement ratio of aged aircraft, meaning that of course more and more aircraft are on the market, more and more very used and very old ones. This is affecting the depreciation still a lot. And what's also affecting the aircraft values negatively is that we see huge discounts of models turning out of production shortly, and also the manufacturers are offering a wider product range. Take for example here Gulfstream. When you saw the graphs before in the early 2000s, Gulfstream had actually without Israeli Aerospace 2 production lines. Yeah. Beginning of this year, end of this year, matters of course when the 450 will run out of production. You are having it 4 or 5 aircrafts or models in productions. So manufacturers are offering more product, the product range are wider. Think about Embraer, more and more models are coming onto the market. This all of course is affecting the residual value of used aircraft. And how owners are reacting to this? Me personally, I'm engaged in more acquisitions at this moment than in sales. However, I have to say that the majority of the owners are accepting those models. Some of them, or these depreciation scales, some of them, they used, of course, the opportunity to purchase, to make a good bargain, to purchase more aircraft for less money. And what we also faced, especially on the acquisition side, we faced this last year, beginning of last year a lot, that you had an aircraft for sale, you had a buyer, you had a deal lined up, but the sellers noticed that my aircraft is 5 years and the deal I have now on the table, so I lose 50% of the value I paid 5 years ago, so I better back out and I keep my aircraft rather than selling it. So this was really, I think many brokers can confirm this and experience this in the past. Yeah? This is also an indication where we see now values going back, especially in the larger segment, to retail, yeah, and some transactions going on above retail. Is there anything to be done to prevent such strong depreciations? Yes, and we heard it also yesterday, and it helped already that the production rates have been cut. Like for example, Bombardier, they produced in 2014 in total 80 units of Global 5000 and 6000. This is what they officially released. And they decreased this to 51 units in 2016. So this helped, of course. And also what would help is a reduction of discounts for models running out of production. For example, if you have a look on the G450, a G450 in 2016, 12 months later, so in 17, the aircraft value was 61%. And if you took in 2013, a G450 from 2012, it was valued at 88%. Of course, we all know the aircraft model is running out of production. This is affecting the value, but it would help to give less concessions here. So, last slide, what we can offer as AvionMar, we do offer aircraft acquisition and sales. And from next March on, and we will announce this also officially at eBase, we will release our new corporate jet lease structure in Ireland, providing financing on an asset-based basis to clients all over the world. Thank you very much.
Can we put slide up? Do we have any questions for Stefan? Sorry, that's the wrong one. With such volatility between old and new residual curves, how can anyone hope to set reliable figures today for 5 years or longer?
I think that not anyone can predict the curves or can predict the figures for the next 5 years. But what I would suggest here, we all hear your bankers, your tax advisors, your lawyers, is what I would really appreciate is changing the mindset. The mindset in a way that if I talk to people, the general mindset is an aircraft after 5 years is 50%. Even new buyers or first-time buyers have this impression. Yeah? And we all should rethink about this mindset, A, and B, if the market goes that strong also further on, like we see it in the recent months especially, I believe that, of course, we will never go back to these low depreciations which we've seen in the beginning of 2000, but, of course, we will go back to slower depreciation, and it is, I see it very probably that an aircraft after 10 years will be still 50% worse in its value of the original purchase price. But not now. Now we see it after 5 years already, and this is not a must.
Okay. Airbus would like you to say nice things about ACJ, BBJ depreciation. Don't feel you need to.
I personally would not set here a general depreciation for an ACJ or a BBJ per year, because as we all know, especially these aircraft models are really depending on the outfit, on the layout, and on the interior, and this is setting the value of the aircraft, and this shows us if the aircraft is selling or not.
Very quickly, I guess the answer to why Ireland for your new platform is tax?
No, I mean, not only for business jets, but also for the general aviation. For the airliners. More than 60% of all airliners worldwide are leased through an Irish structure, not because of only tax reasons, simply because of the fact that you have a very, very great legal setup there. It's very easy to open an Irish setup, and you're really safe by the jurisdiction in Ireland.
And the 58 withholding tax treaties. Why are transactions closing more often at the purchase price rather than at the... I think this is why a seller's always asking too much.
So why are transactions closing more often at the offered purchase price than the asking?
I think it's this, are sellers advertising...
Transactions always close at the purchase price and not at the asking price, right?
Okay, and the last question. Any thoughts on the PC-24?
I have no thoughts, to be honest, personally, on the PC-24 because it's not comparable to me with the PC-12 in residual value. Of course, the PC-12 did great in comparison to all other business jets during the past years. It kept the value very well. Yeah. How the new model will do, I think this we will see in the future.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Stefan. Coffee.
Thank you very much.